This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing Incorporated. For more information or to schedule an appointment, visit their website in the show notes or give them a call at 630-313-9109. Hey everybody, welcome to Area Code Batavia, a podcast about what it means to belong in Batavia. I'm your host, Richard Clark, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great new year. We are finally getting some snow after a long spate of what just felt like cold rain. So I'm recording this looking out of my back window and just seeing a backyard covered in snow. It's quite beautiful, actually. Today on the podcast, I want to take a look back on 2024, and in particular, some of the biggest episodes we had in 2024. You know, when I thought about how do we look back on sort of the conversations I had in the last year and what they sort of meant to me, I thought of all sorts of ways to choose them, and bottom line is I often get decision fatigue, and so I thought I would let you, the listeners, make that choice by basically looking at what were the most popular episodes of the year. So I'll be counting down sort of the top 5 most listened to episodes, and we're going to do something together, which is we're going to listen to them together and sort of react to them and think about what has changed, what hasn't changed, and what we've learned in the last year. So what I'll do is I'll do a brief introduction to each episode. I will listen to it along with you, and then we'll talk about it briefly. I just love doing this because I often can lose track of things like how far we've come, how far I've come as a person. I lose track of progress a lot of times, and I lose track of what's changed in the last year because it can happen so gradually. So I do love the idea of just looking back on 2024 and seeing what we can learn from what's happened. The number 5 episode was the boardwalk shops. This makes sense to me. There were a lot of people that I interviewed for this, and so I suspect we had to sort of broad network of people who were interested in listening to this. I really loved doing these interviews. It was such a great experience just getting to know everyone who had a boardwalk shop, and actually when it came to like figuring out what clip to choose, it was really hard, obviously, because I can't just choose like one boardwalk shop owner. So I decided to choose a section from my conversation with Beth and Kristen, the people who are sort of in charge of the boardwalk shops as the people who work for Batavia Main Street. So here's a portion of my conversation with Beth Walker and Kristen Dessler.
To me, the boardwalk shops represent Batavia's community spirit and the willingness to support and uplift small business owners from like the true start. I think that the sense of community is really palpable here, and I just love that we're able to give entrepreneurs the opportunity to get a taste for having a brick and mortar business, but that the community then is able to come and really uplift them to the point where they're ready to get into a real brick and mortar and continue to support them once they're there.
Well, I love that it's such a unique space. It's not like anything else that we have in the surrounding area. So it's something that I think that Batavians feel really proud of, that it's in their community.
Yes.
Every year, how they come out and support the different businesses is so impressive. I feel like the community feels like they're part of their progress because they're starting at such a base level, and to watch how they grow here, and then when they do go into a brick and mortar, how the community continues to support them, but how they give back and they try and support the boardwalk shops. I think it's just created such a feeling of community and collaboration.
Yeah, which is the theme in Batavia, I think, which is this idea of people collaborating, even competitors, quote unquote, the competitors really are collaborators here in Batavia. You mentioned that word pride. That's an interesting word, and I hear it a lot. Batavians have pride in their town. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that being maybe not Geneva, which is totally a fine thing, but it just like having that
Batavia, also known as not Geneva.
Yeah. But we have like that pride of having that like unique something. Like everybody wants a unique something that they're special or
I say it all the time, but I feel like Batavia is Geneva and St. Charles's like artsy little sister. We have this can-do attitude and this artsy vibe, and we just feel really real to me, the people. And so I think the boardwalk shops kind of exemplify that.
Yeah.
Right.
To you, what does it mean to belong in Batavia?
It's weird. I've been here for so long, but I think I've listened to the podcast. So just that theme of like, when you do decide to get involved and be a part of the community, it's so welcoming, and I just feel like I have just this great big extended family because I've gotten to know all these business owners, and I feel comfortable wherever I go. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I'm proud to be a Batavian. I'm proud to go out and talk about our community and all that we have to offer.
Yeah. And if you want to be a part of Batavia, there's a space for you.
Right. Either whether it's big or small.
Yeah. And I think Beth and I, when we're doing our jobs best, we're able to, give people the opportunity to do that within Main Street or connect them with another organization where, they'll be able to do that too. So there's so many opportunities to get involved downtown.
One of the things I learned, having interviewed all of these people and then watched the boardwalk shops over the course of the season, is that these small spaces do a few things that help people sort of get their businesses off the ground that is really unique. One is that they're easy to sort of initially start, respectively. They're sort of easier to start than a standard brick and mortar situation. But I think one of the things I was really intrigued by is that these small spaces give people the opportunity to sort of become more personally invested in the businesses, because you're walking in and you're getting to know those people who own those stores, who run those stores more intimately. Really, any small space is going to be inherently more intimate than a bigger brick and mortar space. And it's interesting because I think a lot of boardwalk shops who have moved on into brick and mortar have almost, it seems like, intentionally retained that feeling. And so I think that's a real value of the boardwalk shops, and it's something really unique. Things start in Batavia. Like, Batavia is a place where you can start things, and that's a theme I've learned over the course of the year, interviewing a lot of people, whether we're talking about businesses, initiatives, nonprofit organizations. Really, you can come up with an idea and start a thing in Batavia. Now, whether it goes to Geneva is a different question. So if you look at the boardwalk shops, there have been a couple that have ended up in other towns. And that is great, because what that means is Batavia is a place where you can start a thing and then you do whatever you want with that thing from there. Batavia is a place ultimately where new things happen. The next episode is a conversation with the folks at Sturdy Shelter, Frank, Diane, and Oliver. This was a live show. So this was a conversation I had with them live in front of an audience. Let's take a listen.
I feel very confident in the future. I just retired I said I'm going to retire from the position I had. And so I feel very, very good about being here full time and having an opportunity to just focus on one thing instead of 2 or 3 things. I'm very excited about my team. I feel like we are very, very, very lucky to have, blessed to have the people we have. I mean, we have an amazing group of people who help us and have great ideas, and so invested in mission, which is people say, well, a lot of people want to pour a beer. I can teach anybody. I couldn't personally, but you could. I was taught how to pour a beer.
Tilted a little bit.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying. I mean, a lot of people can pour a beer. I mean, and you've been to those places. It's more than pouring a beer. Mm-hmm. To recognize people as people that come through the door as human beings, as people that are valuable, as people that. It's just super important for us to have a spirituality of hospitality. I think that's huge.
I think we're more than just addressing the human thirst for beer. I think a very important part of who we are.
And the beer is good.
We hope that's the case. But we we address.
Speaking of team, here we go.
Another member of the team. Chris Klavitz, everybody. Chris Klavitz.
Yeah, those of you who aren't see that, we just were served by our best server, Chris Klavitz.
Yeah.
But the point, I don't know, like, I really love beer and I like making beer, and but I don't know if honestly I would open a brewery just for beer. It's just not enough. I think that like the human thirst for connection and community and belonging is kind of animates who we are, and so the coupling those two things together as beer as the medium for that, and then hoping that families and individuals could find connection, belonging, significance. I mean, those are the human thirsts. And so as a business, we're really very much about addressing those.
Yeah. We're going to go down the line one more time. Last question. Start with Frank this time. To you, what does it mean to belong in Batavia?
I really love it here. I love the people here. I think it's a very unpretentious community. It's a very accepting community. It's a very loyal community. Now, we just canned a beer today called the Batavia Hella-Style Lager. And on the label, it talks, this is the beer is a very approachable, and it's very much like the people of Batavia. Huh. And it's, we also... Yeah, there is the map on there, but it also a big part of it is that this is a like a faithful and true community, and we felt like this beer is faithful to its style and true to its style. That the Hellas, like the people of Batavia. Yeah. So I feel like the community has embraced us in wonderful ways, and they've treated us more like partners as opposed to what could you do for me, So so all of those pieces are, I think, are the elements of feeling like we belong or I belong here. I love this community. I really do.
That's great. Diane?
I feel like it's really important to belong. I come from my own beginnings are about adoption and belonging, and to me, belonging is huge. And so anytime I feel like there's an opportunity to embrace or to include, that's I feel like is really a part of who I am and what I'd like to see. I'm not always perfect at it, nobody is, but I feel like I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a kid. I wouldn't say I was a really popular person in any way, but I feel like having a space where people can be along, and like when I walk in the door, I wave my hand, and people actually wave back to me. I know. I mean, you may laugh that you say, "Well, I'm the owner," but you know what? That's not common. That's not a big deal to a lot of people, but to me, to have a place I come home to, I mean, I don't live here. I live in another town along the river.
You can say it. I am curious where y'all live. St. Charles.
I mean, it's fine.
Fun fact about St. Charles, the mayor of St. Charles is here a lot.
There you go.
Yeah. I love that. That's great.
There you go. But I mean, I don't want to get too like mushy and sentimental about it, but it really does matter to me that people belong. And so for me, I come out of high school ministry where I see so many students that feel outsiders and don't belong. Like, to me, it's important for people to belong here. And like, the only rule is don't be a then go home and come back tomorrow better. But it's really important to me that people are able to belong here, because that comes from my own personal experience of wanting to belong.
So if you listen to the podcast much at all, you know that I really resonate with what Diane is saying there. One thing about Batavia that I really appreciate is just that a lot of the businesses and the spaces that are created here are about more than just a service or a product. They're really about establishing community and establishing a place where people belong. One of the things that happened for me after I recorded this episode was Sturdy became one of those places for me. I really became a regular at Sturdy Shelter. I love the other places. I love Grainology. I love Bulldog's Cellar. I love all of these places, but Sturdy Shelter is sort of my default. And I've found that having a default is really useful in belonging and feeling like you belong in a space and even in a community. The next episode, that number 3 most popular episode, was my conversation with Juliana at Bocaditos. Here it is.
I am curious, like, when she was talking about, like, I love this idea of, like, we can get Batavia to go, I'm craving an empanada today. Did that feel like a realistic idea?
No.
Why?
That's a great question. I think I didn't think that people would be accepting.
Okay.
But that is a projection of my own insecurities about how people would embrace or not my culture. For sure. People were much more open.
But it's based on something real, isn't it? Maybe? Is it not?
Sure. Based on microaggressions and outright racism that we faced. Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you sort of like challenged that in a way.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you challenged it by creating Bocaditos.
Yeah.
Was there a point where you said to yourself, like, I guess the question I'm asking was starting, I'm going to put it this way, because it's just more fun. Was starting Bocaditos an act of resistance, or was it an answer to what you felt was a market to something?
Can I answer the question? Are you a Star Wars fan?
I wouldn't say a fan, but I'm familiar with Star Wars. I've seen a lot.
Yeah, we're probably Rebel fighters for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I think yes. In being women and being Hispanic women and opening a very openly Hispanic space, yes. Yeah, those are acts of resistance. Yeah.
Is that
small ones?
Yeah. Does that get? It feels to me like it would get tiring.
I think in the beginning when we felt like we had something to prove, but now I don't have anything to prove. You need to prove to me that I should welcome you into my space. Okay. That I've created to welcome everybody, but you have to be accepting.
Are you pleasantly surprised more often than not, or no?
I like to live my life thinking that there is more light than darkness in the world, 100%. So I think that 99% of our interactions are positive.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Bodes well for Batavia, I hope.
Yes.
I hope.
And you get the grumpy customer every once in a while. My mom always says, they're just hungry. Just give them a minute. They're just hungry. And most of the time she's right.
That is so funny. Like, hangry people walk into restaurants.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
It's definitely a motto in our kitchen. If someone has because here, it's mostly counter service. You order at the counter first, and then we bring you your food. So most of the time, someone will take care of someone at the counter and turn around in the back of the kitchen and say, okay, they've ordered this and this, and then kind of give a look, and the other person will respond, they're just hungry.
Oh man, that is so deep. I'm like taking a minute to think about that, because it's better than kill them with kindness. It's better than that. Yeah. It's like, I feel like there's always a story behind what makes people, and it's not that like the things you're talking about, racism, microaggressions, doesn't exist, but it is a thing where there is insecurity and frustration and hungriness.
Yeah. One time I read a quote. Amy Sedaris put together a list of like 5 things you should always keep in mind for the New Yorker or something like that. And one of the things was always assume that the person that you're talking to is in mourning. And that was such a huge perspective shift, because it's not they're hungry. It is, mourning is such a deeper loss and feeling, and it can be fleeting, or you can sit in it for a day or a week or years at a time. And that was a big, that one has stuck with me for a long time.
My version of it is everyone is fighting a hard battle.
Exactly.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah. So if we can warm someone's heart with a cup of coffee or an empanada.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think personally this may be one of my favorite interviews that I've done. And this particular clip is one of my favorite parts. It sort of checks 3 different boxes for me. It's this candid sort of acknowledgement that things aren't always great, that things don't always feel great. It also is like this acknowledgement of empathy and how important empathy is for other people, even when they are, being grumpy or not as nice as you would like them to be. And then this acknowledgement of the power of concrete things to help facilitate connection with each other, the way that places or food can help people connect to one another. I find that to be really profound. And yeah, I just really loved that conversation. I wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing Incorporated, a family-owned and operated business serving our community for years. It's been pretty cold the last few days. I don't know if you've noticed. Imagine this. You're coming in from a long morning walk. You step into your shower, you turn it on, and the water is cold. It's not good. It's not a situation you want to experience. And so our advice is to go with a tankless water heater from Bulldog Plumbing. They're the local experts who can help keep your family warm and cozy no matter how low the temperature drops. Tankless water heaters provide endless hot water without the wait, plus they save you money and energy. Bulldog Plumbing offers top-notch installation and service, ensuring your home stays comfortable all season long. So for a warm and worry-free winter, click the link in the show notes or give them a call to schedule an appointment at 630-313-9109. All right, we are right in the middle of this episode, and I say that because I think I said at the beginning of this episode that we were going to count down the top 5. Well, I've realized that I have accidentally pulled six episodes worth of clips here, and so what you actually heard was not 5, 4, 3, it was 6, 5, 4. So that was the number 4 episode clip. So I'm not going to go back and correct all of that. I just want you all to know. Okay, you just heard 6, 5, 4. All right. This is the number 3 most popular episode. This episode is called In Batavia, Flags Are Symbols of Belonging. I talked to 4 different guests for this episode. Marty Callahan, Rachel Agro, who designed the Batavia community flag. I talked to former council member Dan Chanzit. But who you're going to hear from now is the graphic design teacher at the Batavia High School, Kathleen Tieriton, who helped educate students and others in the community about how they can help with the Batavia community flag. She kind of facilitated that. And then also she is the teacher sponsor for the BHS Pride Alliance. You're going to hear a clip of our conversation about the Batavia community flag and her involvement in that. And then you're going to hear a little bit about her talking about the Batavia Pride flag.
What was the hardest thing about this process?
You want to make sure you're hearing a lot of voices when you do something like that and having it open to the community and trying to figure out the best ways to connect, and so I was really working with thinking about the youth and thinking about talking to people about design.
Yeah.
And so we did some sessions at the library. We had classes for adults and then we had classes for youth. And it was really cool because I don't get to work with adults very often. And we had, all different kinds of 18 through 90 probably that were part of the class, like the workshop and stuff. And so it was cool to get to talk to all different kinds of people about how you symbolically represent a community.
That has to be the hardest thing about it, because in the last episode of this podcast, we talked about flags as symbols of belonging, invitations to belong, right? And there's a lot at stake with making a flag like that because it can't alienate anyone, that's for sure. You start there, and then it also has to make people go, yes, that's my town. But it has to make everyone say that. So how do you, in your mind, what's the way as an art teacher, as a graphic design teacher, how do you walk that line?
More symbolism and less representation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is really like when we would do the banners and, they would want to put football. And I'd be like, okay, but that's a couple hundred people in this town, but what about everybody else? Like what, how are you representing other people? Or when you get so pointed with your representation, you're definitely othering people. And so how can you get back to that core of the ideas and the meaning that you're trying to put through versus just the thing.
Yeah.
And so we have that conversation a lot because we've done like pieces at school where we talk about like environmental graphics and just different, like what would you put in the school if you were doing a mural or something. And
and thinking about just different ways to kind of connect with the community.
Yeah.
And so what's fun about a flag or a postcard or a banner, you have a very limited space. And so how do you take something that's very limited? It's a really fun design challenge, and connect to an audience or an idea.
You are also involved in the BHS Pride Alliance.
Yes. So I am the sponsor.
The sponsor of the BHS Pride Alliance. So you sort of enable it to exist.
Yes.
That's basically the definition of sponsor, right?
Yeah, right.
That idea of belonging and a flag that helps everyone feel belong would apply really particularly to the Pride flag, right? So I'm curious, like, we can see that. It's actually really clear right now because the wind is blowing.
Yes.
Can you describe that flag and kind of what it means to you and maybe even your students?
Sure. I don't think there's probably much visually that gives me the joy, like heartfelt joy, than seeing the Pride flag places. Growing up in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, I went to high school in a very rural community in Indiana, very conservative community, and being an ally then and just an outsider to the first generation of people coming out in high school in that area were my best friends. And so seeing that hate and experiencing that hate, not maybe quite firsthand, but very closely, stuck with me forever. And so the moment I became a teacher, a lot of why I became a teacher was for issues revolving around social justice. I felt schools are a place of community for so many people in different ways. And one of those ways is, sometimes that's the only place you can find certain kind of community and support and belonging.
Yeah.
So in the last few years, seeing the Pride flag kind of present itself more and more in our community and in different communities nearby, it's just such a moment of kind of peace and joy because it wasn't present in a very short recent history. We did not see the Pride flag. And so since they started raising it here for city council, the city council started raising it, I've been down for the flag raising most years. Like anytime I can, I've been here. And I see my students, I see my former students, I see younger people, I see older people, and just seeing the people come together for that moment to be like, this is actually happening in our town. This is real. We're here. We're being told it's okay to be here. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I love that I see my former students this year I was getting text messages. They're like, Miss T, are you coming? I'm like, I'm trying. My kid won't get out of the quarry, out of swim lessons. Like, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think it means so much to them to live in a town where that flag is there.
Yeah.
In a town where we're a part of the homecoming parade as a club.
Yeah.
Which is always one of the most emotional days for me of the year. Just that presence and in the community between, you feel so many things, but the biggest part for me, like during the homecoming parade, is like, I'm always terrified. And then we're walking and then like these groups just erupt in applause when they see the Pride group. And then it's like, we call it the La Bamba lump in my family. The you're trying not to cry and you're, trying to keep, all choked up.
Yeah.
It's just powerful because it wasn't like that a few years ago.
I think sometimes we can take acceptance for granted. Those of us who are maybe not feeling as accepted as we want to be, but we're used to not being actively rejected or actively sort of excluded or alienated. And I think we can take that for granted. Sometimes, I think one of the things the Batavia flag, what she clearly tried to do was to make people feel like they're a part of it, to make people feel included, both the people who are, trying to create the flag, but also those who saw the flag. You want to see it and feel like you relate to it. It represents you. Sometimes you have to go above and beyond that to make people feel belong. And I think in particular, when the nature of someone's exclusion or a group of people's exclusion has been above and beyond. So I appreciated how she was able to talk about, the need for that for the LGBTQ plus community and what the flag means to them in that respect and how it sort of plays that role in the community. That was our number 3 episode of the year, most popular. Our number 2 most popular episode of the year was my very first conversation with Leah and Joy of Limestone Coffee. Here's a clip.
I'll start with Leah.
Okay.
To you, what does it mean to belong in Batavia?
I think it's a give and a take. You have to like show up, and you have to be part of what Batavia is. And so I think in a lot of our society, we're takers. We want the service, we want the food, we want the drink, we want, it's all about me and what can I get. And I think to belong in Batavia, you have to give.
Yeah.
Along with the taking. And, whether that's volunteering or just showing up or
spending your money here.
Or spending your money here.
Not
your time
here at Limestone, but here in the
Batavia.
town.
Yeah. Come
What
to
a great
Limestone.
idea.
Yeah.
Little sales pitch there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Batavians who have already found that belonging. And I think there's a lot of people who haven't quite yet found it. Mm-hmm. And I want to be like, you don't even know what it's like. Like this is here for you. But it's just, it's showing up. And even, let's see here, what evening was it? It was Thursday night. My husband and I, we didn't have anything on our calendar, which is very rare. Mm-hmm. It was a gorgeous night. And so I said, let's just go downtown and walk around Batavia. And so we brought our dog and we walked around, River Street and across the Peace Bridge and up Wilson. And there were people everywhere. There were people out. Their Sidecar Supper Club was doing trivia night. So like River Street was full of people. The Popcorn Depot was popping popcorn and, and we ran into so many people that we either knew personally or kind of knew them. They kind of knew us. And so you could kind of just like, hey, how are you? And wave. But it's just that, it's that showing up. Yeah. And, when instead of just plopping down in front of another television show, it was, let's just go walk around.
Right.
So.
Yes. I think one of the things I've observed is living in the suburbs is that there is a real impulse sometimes to go to a different place, like I did when I lived in Wheaton and came to Batavia.
Yeah.
Though that was a little more intentional. I think a lot of times we end up out on Randall and we're going off to Geneva or North Aurora, and we're not really thinking about how can I be a part of this place that I actually live.
Right.
And that's part of why I'm starting the podcast is to focus. So I've had people say, why not do the Tri-Cities? And I'm like, no, but I want to really focus on this town because I believe that is actually beneficial both for the town but also for the people to actually focus on where you live. What about you, Joy? What's what is belonging to? What does it mean to belong in Batavia? Sorry, I forgot the question.
Yeah. So I'll echo a little bit what Leah said, but I was thinking about John F. Kennedy because the Peace Corps is so ingrained in me.
Okay.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Yeah.
Ask what you can do for your country. Just and how much that gives back to you.
Yeah.
Right. Like Leah said. But I think it's also, and this is a little bit of me, but I feel so at home here. I feel like it's also Batavia. It's just believing the best about your neighbors. Just instead of assuming everybody's out to screw you or I don't know. That's just not here. If you believe the best about the people around you, I think that's how you connect here.
Is that true? Is that truer in Batavia than other places? Maybe that's
I have to believe it is because they actually reach out. Why would you reach out or why would you want to be connected to someone you don't believe the best about? I don't know. I've just never felt people, might be true on some level elsewhere, but it's just so I feel prevalent here.
Yeah.
Maybe more deeply true.
Yeah.
With more people or more parts of people.
This episode was such a big deal to me, really for 2 reasons. I mean, one, obviously, it was our first episode, so that was a pretty big deal. But also, it spoke directly to 2 things I was struggling with at the beginning of this podcast, which is, one was just getting out there. And I think I alluded to going to other towns or things. At that moment, really my struggle was just getting out of the house. I was the type of person who would just plop in front of the TV, and to some extent I still am, but it was very rare that I would go out and hang out somewhere outside of my home or my church or a friend's house. And so Leah was speaking directly to me, it felt like, even though she's in theory speaking to sort of the undefined audience. But also getting involved was a struggle of mine, and I think that's something I discussed with various people throughout the season. And just that inspiration to sort of like become a part of something or even start something and make people a part of it, I think was a really valuable conversation. Our final number one most popular episode, I don't know if you can guess it. I'll give you a minute. See if you can guess it. That's right. You got it. It is Dennis Piron, the Coach Dennis Piron of the track and field and football team of Batavia High School. People loved this episode, and I loved it too. So here is a clip of our final number one episode of the year, most popular, Dennis Piron.
I think as a community member, I think what I've found over the years, and I hope other people feel this way, is you can build real authentic friendships and relationships with people and feel comfortable and safe knowing that there's not a lot of judging going on around this place. A lot of just, hey, what's going on this weekend? Come over to our cookout. Hey, what's going on with you and your kids and your family? Hey, what's happening here or there? I've always felt a very tolerant community. We've always had tons of churches. Though we're not incredibly diverse, we have a level of diversity that's always existed here, which I always was pretty proud of and felt great about growing up. But I just think being a Batavian means that you're in a place, again, where you are loved and can be loved and you can feel safe and comfortable in a place that you hope where you end up in life is a lot like the place that you were. And most of the relationships that I've had throughout my life of people that I either met that moved here, met that grew up here, met that lived here, have all been similar in that everybody seems pretty happy to be here. And especially raise their family here. And I am so proud of my kids and so proud of the education they received here in this community and so pleased of the extended family that they've created in this town growing up being Bulldogs. And I hope that so many others feel the exact same way. It seems like they do. We've got, if numbers mean anything, we have large numbers again in our football program this year like every other year. I don't think you go out knowing there's a limited amount of players on a field at any given time and contribute in the capacity that kids do here if it isn't something that they're enjoying that's having a good influence for them, despite the fact that only this amount of kids can be the guys. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Like start or whatever.
So I continue to hope that the reputation of our program with people in the community, it's a very good program that serves our community.
It's interesting. Like there's something about, I feel like, to mirror back to you what you just said, one thing that it means to belong in Batavia is being willing to be present whether or not you're the guy. Being willing to be, and also not feeling a judgment for not being the guy. That those things go hand in hand.
I hate being the guy, by the way.
Okay.
Because I am the guy a little bit. But the kids knowing that I don't like any of that.
It's interesting.
I mean, I run it. I'm running the thing.
So maybe Batavia is a community where the guys hate being the guys.
The guys hate being the guys.
And the people who aren't the guys are okay not being the guys.
That's, you know what? I'm going to tell that to my coaches today. I know. I'm grateful for you saying that. We have a lot of people willing to be service-oriented and just contribute. That's why we're successful. So many people contribute and don't care that they're not the guys. And when the inevitable replacement of me occurs soon by whomever is going to be the guy, the best guy to be the guy is the guy that really doesn't want to be the guy, but can be. And can deal with all this stuff so all the other guys don't have to worry about it. And I hope that that's what I'm doing for the guys here because they seem to be having a good time. We had our first coaches staff meeting here Sunday in this room. We have donuts and break up into the rooms and it was a packed house and we're all kind of doing our thing and making some sacrifices away from families and new babies and stuff to prepare to get ready for our season and prepare to play our first opponent, because that does go on. I'm not going to pretend like we just love each other and show up and win. There's a lot of hard work.
Yep.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
So Batavia, where guys don't mind not being the guys.
I'm not sure I have a lot to add to this, really. I mean, this is a really important point about what makes Batavia great. I think the way I have often framed it is as Batavia is unpretentious. It's a place where people are relatively humble and don't like the spotlight all the time. It's not just about not being humble. It's about actively facilitating something where lots of people can be involved sort of on an equal level and equal footing. I love that about Batavia. A lot of people doing a lot of things, not seeking glory, and I think it works. That has been this year in review episode of Area Code Batavia. Stay tuned, keep listening. We've got a few good interviews coming down the pike this year. I'm really excited about the new year, and I'd love to hear what you think. So let me know if you have any feedback, if you have any requests for people we should cover. I am really interested in hearing what you think and what you want to hear. Thanks so much. See you guys. Thanks for listening to Area Code Batavia. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you enjoy this podcast, why not subscribe to our newsletter? Just click the link in the show notes and put in your email address. Not only will we let you know whenever there's a new episode of Area Code Batavia available, but each issue also brings you 5 concrete ways to experience a deeper sense of belonging in the community of Batavia, Illinois. Most importantly, if you know someone who would love to hear this podcast, please share it with them. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community and help more people feel like they belong in Batavia, Illinois. Area Code Batavia is produced by Area Code Audio. It's hosted and produced by me, Richard Clark, with additional production help from Jennifer Clark.